wherever you want to start, we can go way back to the start of Whānau Ora, and then to the story of how Te Arawa Whānau Ora was formed.
Okay. So the notion of Whānau Ora came about through Tariana Tūria, who became the minister at the time. We had an opportunity as the Māori Party to go with the National Party to bring this to fruition. Luckily, the relationship was such that the Prime Minister at the time, John Key, allowed Tariana to pull together a task force which basically did some research about what was wrong with the system, why it wasn't hitting the mark in terms of the needs of our people, and him and his task force, Sir Mason Jury, provided a report which became the centrepiece, the birthplace of Whānau Ora. It concluded that the system does not accommodate for Māori. I mean, that's not new. So therefore the genesis of Whānau Ora really actually dates back to sort of a report called Te Pua o Te Atatu, which was written by John Rangihau and a number of others, that was looking at exactly the same thing in 1998, for goodness sake, almost 20, 30 years before that. So it was a long time coming. Attempts by many people to try and get governments of the day to recognise that we could do things ourselves, for ourselves. We've got a vested interest to do it right, and the approach is totally different. The approach is all about a singular approach, one child, one person, one wife, one mother, one son, as opposed to whānau. Pretty simple. So 2010 was the beginning of Whānau Ora. After the release of the report, we were able to get some momentum. Tariana became minister, and the first part of that was to try and bring all of our providers together, because at the time it was a competitive model. All of the providers were out there, and heaps of Māori providers, you find them all up and down the street, but actually we needed to coordinate because we're in competition with each other and there was no linking of information. And again, we were simply supporting the notion that it's one problem, one child, as opposed to actually whānau approach. It's best illustrated by the notion that, you know, Te Maiti back in the day, they'd send a truancy officer up the drive and they'd go only get and deal with that child. Get them back to school, that's it. As if to say that solves the problem. Well, actually, the child might have been at home because they're looking after Nanny, and Nanny's got asthma, and she's got asthma because the house is cold. But so nobody thinks about the bigger picture of the whānau. That mokopuna, which is not new to Māori and Pacific families, was looking after her kuia, because that's what you do, you don't leave her at home. So it's sort of trying to change the view that when agencies go up the drive, how about we have a coordinated approach which looks at not just that one issue, but looks at all of the issues with whānau, but not tell them what to do, get them to tell us what they should be doing, because they want to get it right as well. Our view, as in states and agencies, is always to tell, direct, instruct. Well, actually sometimes we get it wrong. Whereas if the whānau is working with us and it's from in their best interest to get it right, they'll probably tell us where they want to go and how they want to do it. So the Whānau Ora approach was tipping the whole system on its head, but it needed some money. In order to get some money, you need to be a minister. You need to be in the government. And then you need to start digging into the money that's available from the bigger agencies like Health, like MSD, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, the first part of Whānau Ora was basically just bringing Māori providers together, and then it got moved out into 3 commissioning agencies. The view was that communities knew what they wanted and how to best service the needs of the community. So you should give the decision making out into the rohe. Didn't quite get to that, although there was a time when that happened, but now you've got 3 commissioning agencies for the whole country that basically decide with those communities what's best. So one of the ways that we tried to do that in Te Arawa was to come together as a collective of providers with it at home here, like the likes of Papatakoro, the likes of Korowai Aroha, and so on, to sort of work together such that we didn't trip over each other. We had standard systems, collective systems that we could say, well, if you need this, you go there, but if you need this, you go there. But all within the system. And that was the beginnings of it. It was hard work because it was new, innovative, and a big ups to the ones that really started, to Malagwan as the first CEO, and followed in by others that are coming after that. All about consolidating our efforts as agencies, but the focus is on whānau. That's why it's called Whānau Ora. With Ora is being well. It's not just about the one truancy thing. Wellness is about a whole approach, looking at the whole whānau and trying to pick off how we can not give a hand out, but give a hand up. That's the approach it's supposed to be. And that's why I think it's been so successful. Well, if we take it still that the aspiration is to work with whānau, one of the issues that has come to the fore in respect to dealing with even COVID is the ability of Māori providers like Whānau Ora to get to our people. The ones that, they're everyday hori and mere on the road, but they're also those hard to reach communities throughout Arohi. They don't like the state for many reasons. They don't like agencies coming around to tell them what to do. They don't like agencies finding out about their stuff. They just have a good life and get on with things, and if now and again they need a hand, they'll go and look for it. But they're not fussed. They just stay with who they are. But the one thing that's come through, absolutely without any doubt, throughout the whole country, not here at home, is that we know how to deal with our people. We know how to get to them. We know how to find them. We know how to address their needs. We know how to care for them. That's why we've been so important in the current landscape of the COVID pandemic. The downside is, of course, that we have to work with other agencies who are monocultural. Their view of the world is that there is one shoe and it fits everybody. But that's not the reality. The reality, it doesn't work like that. In particular for Māori communities, you've got a dynamic of the rich, the poor. You've got a dynamic of Ngāti Porou. You've got a dynamic of Te Arawa. You've got a dynamic of those who are in gangs, those who don't like the state come hell or high water. You've got those small communities like the Muruporas, the Kaingaroas. You've got just a total different dynamic throughout our rohe. So you've got to measure it. You've got to understand those communities in order to make a change with them, not for them. And so Whānau Ora hopefully will be always around, because we are the one-stop shop for many of our people. People believe in us because they know that without people like our navigators and the wānanga that we run, that it is about changing lives. Our navigators are there. I know that because I've interviewed people. People all of a sudden become aunties and uncles to some of their children, and they invite them back for Christmas. There's got to be something in that. They know that through even our waka courses, it changes people's lives, because all of a sudden somebody actually cares about them, somebody loves them, somebody wants to be with them, somebody wants to talk to them, somebody wants to guide them, somebody just wants to get in a boat with them. Those things you don't find anywhere else. That's why it's so dynamic and so powerful. A kaupapa that we are privileged to be a part of makes huge differences to people's lives. And the great thing is they're willing to share some of those stories, which we capture from time to time, but a lot of it goes unseen and unheard of. Why? Because whānau, they get their buzz from being around us, and then they go back to their families, different people. And when you get to that point, you know you're doing something right. On the other side of the coin, the state, most agencies don't know how to do that because they're stuck in this monocultural view about how the world should be. So the goal is, of course, is to take some of those resources, because most of those resources sit within those agencies, and for us to collaborate far more as Māori providers, such that we look after our people in a way that is culturally appropriate, as we do, and that they stay with us. We don't just go in there and say, ka pai, done, goodbye. No. We stay with whānau. They're a part of us. Whānau Ora at its biggest sense. So, when we're talking about mana oranga, we are talking about mana whānau, and that's what Te Arawa Whānau Ora is all about here for our people.